All right. Here we are, another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Hey,
Well,
Peter,
good morning there, Bill.
how's everything?
Everything's doing okay. We're getting there. We're getting somewhere. How are
All
you?
right. I'm good.
Yeah.
Good. Just plugging through my closings, doing my crap. You know how it goes. Real estate, real estate, real estate. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Today, Peter, we are going to do episode number 240. 240. And the name of today's episode is Rookie's Dictionary for Creative Real Estate Terms and Most Needed and Wanted, Part 3.
Part 3. Yep.
Yeah, so what we did is we did a 3-part series, obviously number 238, 239, and 240, and it was all about the creative real estate terms. Okay, so I'm going to read the description now. Here we go.
When you say terms, you mean
the frame, the phrases, the words, the definitions.
Yeah, that damn word has 3 different meanings, 3 different big meanings.
Yeah, exactly.
In real estate, 3 totally different ones. Okay. Definitions.
Right, so here's the description. In this highly talked about, underachieved industry we call creative real estate investing, the most highly kept secret is words and phrases could set you free. Words and phrases can set you free. As far as I'm concerned, the only way to grow into total freedom is when you can work once and get paid multiple times. And real estate is one of those few careers that can give you that. The only drawback is understanding how to do it without a long runway or a Yale 6-year degree. When in fact, your limits to succeeding with real estate investing fall into your own ability to read and speak accurately, flawlessly, and with complete fluency using creative real estate talk. All too often, investors, I'll give that to you again. All too often, investors learn these important terms and dialect by listening in seminars or videos and going past misunderstoods to only make up their own definitions by the way the words are used in a sentence. No. Allowing total misinterpretation to sneak in and add to the time and money when first learning. This episode alone with number 238 and 239 will give you the quantum leap you have desired for a long time. So study these 3 podcasts carefully. Make sure you take lots of notes and you listen to them multiple times. If you are going to take verbal information from others, take these 3 podcasts as your first verbal information. If you're going to listen to somebody, listen to these 3 podcasts and understand these terms. Okay?
Right, because you're not making these up. You're going off actual definitions and, a lot of experience knowing what they really, really are.
Mostly definitions, but I interpret them so you can understand them. Before we get started, let's do some of the housekeeping type things. First of all, good morning, Desiree. She's on Facebook watching us this morning, which is pretty cool. If you go into the description of wherever you are listening to us or watching us, there's a link in there that will give you 25 or 26 free things, including scripts, videos, documents, all kinds of goodies to help you get started as a real estate entrepreneur. They are like some of the scripts are what we use today. To date is what I meant to say. So make sure you go in there and you check out free stuff. Even if you haven't been there in a while, go check it out. I've been changing that page a little bit, so I've been kind of moving some things around. So go check it out because I refresh it as often as I can or need to. Or if somebody has a suggestion, they will be there and you'll see them. The other thing is as I was talking to Desiree, and good morning, Juan. Now Juan has joined us. He's saying good morning to us, Peter.
Hey, Juan.
So we record this podcast on Thursday mornings, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. And when we record it, we live stream it to Facebook, and we also live stream it to YouTube. So if you care to join us or ask any questions while we are recording the podcast live, just go to either Facebook or YouTube, and you could check us out there. I have a big screen in front of me. Thank you, Emma, my daughter, the assistant. Put this big screen in front of me so I can see all the questions and what's going on. I'm like an air pilot in an airplane. I got this cockpit in front of me, Pete. It's got me all set up. So you could go there and ask your questions. Also, wherever you are, please like us and subscribe us and leave us reviews if you so care to. I love the reviews. If you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, everything is there. Top right-hand side is a testimonial page. I'm shooting for over 100 testimonials, and I'm not that far off. I got a little bit of work to do, but if you can help me out, I feel like, Peter, I help a lot of people out. As you're aware, you see it because you're around me all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for some help back. So if you can help me out by help me hit the goal, then there you go. So Desiree said, say the name of the Facebook page. So it's on Facebook or YouTube. All you have to do is type in Flipping Houses for Rookies. So when you go to Facebook, you type in the search engine, Flipping Houses for Rookies. You'll find our page. If you go to YouTube, Flipping Houses for Rookies, you'll find our page. Thank you, Desiree. Woo! We got that over with.
Yeah, huh? There it is. Thanks, folks. Tune in next week.
If I don't do that, I get scathing emails from Emma and my coach like, you didn't do it. All right. Yeah. So, Pete.
Yes, Bill.
Today, we're going to start off by talking about the game called telephone.
Oh, yeah. The game.
Or its real name, I don't know if you know this, is called Chinese Whisper.
It probably has a bunch of names, doesn't it?
No, Chinese Whisper is the original name.
That's the original. Yeah, and then I guess changed. So Whisper, I remember Whisper, but it's Chinese Whisper.
It's Chinese Whisper.
Okay.
All right. So telephone, what is it? What does that mean? Right? It's a game that we played when we were kids. At least you and I did, anyways, in our generation.
Yeah.
And here's what happened. It was where you kind of sat in a circle, and somebody would originate or start with some sort of a communication. And they would whisper in a person's ear to their right or the left, and they would keep whispering around, right? So here's what it means. It's any situation where information is passed in turn by a number of people and often becoming distorted in the process, right? So I'll read that again. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about telephone. Any situation where information is passed in turn by a number of people and often becoming distorted in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So basically, simple miscommunication exists in almost every workplace.
Oh yeah, easily.
So why would our industry be any different? Right? So it would be passing around, often becoming distorted in the process. So it's distorted information that we're calling miscommunication.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So one little piece could be altered or changed or left out or added to. That's usually what it is. People add their opinions to it, right? And it gets passed around, right? Practically every creative real estate investor that I know, and I know quite a few, you know that I do multiple calls during the week. I do private consultations. I have coaching clients. I now have 2 coaching groups. I have one coaching group here in America, and I have another one in Israel. And, I'm just like doing my thing. So I talk to a lot of investors, not as many as maybe more than the big gurus, because they don't talk to their clients. They just write sales.
That's right. They hire other guys.
Right. So I actually do the coaching calls myself. I do these one-on-one interviews. I do somewhere around a dozen of them a week. If you count the podcast and my emails and all the people I talk to between 7,000 and 8,000 people a week. Okay, that's my house clients. That's and not all of it is one-on-one, but a good portion of it is. I'm on the phone all the time, right?
Yep.
So practically every creative real estate investor I know starts off reading, which is good if there's a glossary and it knows what in the glossary is good. So a lot of people will
Mhm.
read and not even know that they don't understand something and won't bother to clear it up. So reading is okay, but it's still not good unless you do it the right way, right? You got to know the
Sure.
definition.
Sure.
Or they'll go to seminars, which is the most common. And even more common than that, they'll watch videos, often courses that they buy and pay money for, right?
Right.
Isn't this like the telephone game I just spoke of?
Mhm.
Just whisper in each other's ears as a child on the playground? Isn't that
Yeah.
what it's like?
Well, yeah, especially when that person starts talking to the next one. I did. I started talking to the family, blah, 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 blah. Like, I wasn't quite right in the very beginning, you know.
I hear it in my coaching group. They'll start talking about things in my coaching group, and I'll be like,
ooh, right in front of you, huh?
yeah.
Ooh.
And their coaching clients have been around for a while. I mean, it happened to me on Monday night. I'm not going to call the person out, but I was like, wow, you should have known that like a year ago. And I had no idea. Something simple.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Right? So no wonder creative real estate is so confusing.
Mm.
Right? The foundation of terms and phrases are so miscommunicated. It's like playing telephone, right?
Mm-hmm.
If only a little bit they aren't exact or correct, just a little bit. You know, I'm not saying you have them total crashing misunderstood, but all you need to do is be off just a little bit sometimes.
Well, if you're off a little bit, what happens when you try to go use it in working out a deal, writing a contract, making an offer, promising somebody something? If you're off a little bit, that can make a little bit of a mess.
Right. So what happens is, simply put, it's a distorted way to learn.
Mm.
So I think Sean Clouden put in his book, Sean Clouden is The Power of Words. You should go read that book. It's The Power of Words. That's where all this is coming from. The Power of Words from Sean Clouden.
Mm-hmm.
I think he said there was 10 ways to misunderstand a word. 10 ways to misunderstand a word.
Yep. Yeah, I've studied that, and there are. One of them is you make it up. You just make some crap up.
Yep.
You know what I see people do a lot of the time? There'll be a word, and it sounds like another word. You know, a couple letters different, and they'll think it means that. Like, no, it's different, but it's all they got, and they just grasp onto it. You know.
Yeah.
And it's just a few letters different, but it's not the same. You know, we got 26 letters. Every one of them means a little different. So that's one of them. Just thinking it's like this other thing.
So I was reading in Sean's book not too long ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That Malcolm X. We all knew who Malcolm X is, right?
Yeah.
He was a total like druggie, like serious, you know, like in jail all the time. Huh. So he got convicted for a long period of time. I think in the late 1950s. Right?
Oh, way back that far back, huh?
Yeah, well, I think he died in 65.
Hmm.
Right? So here's what he did. Listen to me carefully, because this is like an extraordinary story. So when he was in prison, what he did to pass time was he used a dictionary and started handwriting the definitions of the words in the dictionary from the first page to the last page.
Wow.
He came out of jail, and that's when he became known as Malcolm X, because he now and he, that's right. Desiree said he went blind reading. Right. So
wow.
So what happened was he educated himself through the definitions. He did his prison time, and as we know, Malcolm X, of all the things he did for society, right? All the things he did for society, he like. It was.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got a little tickle.
So everything he did for society was because he read these definitions and he understood the English language. So when he was speaking in front of microphones, it was because of his stint in jail and reading all these definitions, and he understood the words. And he talks about at the end of his life about how that happened. About how he just read the definitions. He didn't study the topics. He just read the definitions.
Yeah, I've seen that. And one of my, I probably said this last one, but one of my young friends, my son's friends, she's like a daughter to me, in college, couldn't get through all the chapter reading because of her full-time job. Read 7 chapters tonight and do it. Test tomorrow night. Not quite. So she read the glossary.
Yep. You said that
And,
last week. Yeah.
That's right. And got the highest score, just in case she got the highest score in the class, because she just understood what was going on. And wouldn't it be likely that somebody like Malcolm X winds up in jail because they don't understand words, they don't understand things, they get in trouble, they can't make money, they steal instead, or they get in some kind of trouble because they're not literate? It's not a new idea. Illiteracy doesn't make your life any better. You know, you can get in trouble some way.
So my final point on this before we do today's definitions is this. How many people tell us, Peter, how many people tell us the best way they learn is to watch someone do it? They really aren't a bookworm.
Oh, I know.
Now, don't get me wrong. If you are going to study lawnmowers, you have to at least see and touch lawnmowers to get the physical mass of the subject, right?
Yep.
But I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about this balance of physical mass and theory for these folks, because there has to be a balance. These people who tell me that they need to watch someone have an outbalance of theory and physical mass. So they just watch somebody do it. So they're like doing Simon Says. This is like going to the seminar. You're dying to have a coach so you can watch him do it. Right? But that's an outbalance. It's not correctly balanced because you need to have some theory and then go do it. So it's a balance of both. So it's a balance between what's in your mind and putting it into the physical universe.
That's right.
Right? They just want the physical mass without any or very little or no theory. And that doesn't work either.
Nope.
Right? And as far as I have found from making or working with a lot of students is the exact reason why most people have such a long runway to success. Plus such a steep gradient on the cost for the education is because they have this out of balance. They're not conceptually understanding the theory and trying to overcompensate for it with the physical mass and trying to watch. It's not a good balance. So most gurus believe if they don't charge a shit ton of money, students don't pay attention. Thus, no results. So the reason why gurus charge 15,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 is because they're trying to shock you to do the system. When in fact, these gurus really don't understand what we are talking about today and in episode number 238 and 239. So because they lack teaching skills, like I said, they try to shock the students with high fees so they don't have to, so they have to pay attention and work extremely hard around the lack of the teaching skills of the trainer.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's the punishment method. Parents will do that with their kids. If you don't get good grades, no football, no music lessons, no grounded, no phone. Punishment, forcing them as if they're not trying hard enough when they just don't understand and they're not getting help. Don't punish somebody, help them. And that's why we're doing this today. This is where it starts. You have to understand what you're reading. It's not that complicated, folks, but no one ever talks about that. Say, it's not important. Kids are taught in school that you don't have to look up words in a dictionary. Just guess. We've said that before, but it's chronic and it's constant. It's constant.
Juan says, great explanation. That's why I'm here. Well, welcome, Juan.
Okay, Juan.
All right. So really what it comes down to is a strange phenomenon of understanding words, terms, and phrases in real estate investing. Right? So I'm not talking about, I want to get clear on this, really clear, and then we're going to go off to the first definition, okay? I want to get really, really clear. I want to hit the bullseye on this right now, Peter.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about, well, first of all, scan back in your mind Okay. And just connect these two dots. When you went to school, I don't care what school, kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade if you made it that far, or into college if you went that far, right? And they tell you to study. But there was no class or education or process on how to study. They just assumed you knew what they meant when you said study. Okay.
Yep.
Most people think that studying is memorizing.
Yeah.
They need to memorize the terms and the words and all that stuff. They need to memorize. And that's what people do with my coaching stuff, is they're trying to memorize the phrases and the terms that I use. And they're trying to memorize everything that I say, and they hang on every little last word that I say, and they're trying to repeat what I say. They're trying to memorize the scripts. They're trying to memorize, the paperwork, and they're trying to memorize the system, right? And that will take you forever, because my memory sucks.
Yeah, memories aren't that good, folks. That's too much. Yep.
What I'm talking about is understanding these terms, right? And I'm talking about understanding the concepts and then making them your own, not memorizing them. See, when you're memorizing something, it's somebody else's, it's not yours.
Yep.
It's like an over there-ness. It's not yours. You're trying to recall somebody else's thought and repeat it. Where if you study it and you absorb it and make it your own, so it's part of you as a person, and you understand it. It's like I think there's not anybody on this call that can't answer this question. What's 2 + 2? Right? It's because you were taught. You don't need to think about. Now, I could say that 15 different ways, right? What's 2 + 2? Add 2 to 2. What is 2? What is 4 - 2? There's a bunch of ways we could say it. I'll never stump you up.
Yeah.
Because you just get it. You understand that simple math.
Yeah.
And when you understand something to its core like that, you don't need to memorize anything. You can ad hoc your own sentences. Now, some of the sentences, like what would have to happen for me to buy your house today, is a very calculated sentence. But when you understand how well it works, and when you watch the results in front of a seller, you understand those words. You don't memorize them. You understand them and use them exactly at the right precise time, and you elicit the answer. Because here's where one of the biggest weaknesses is for every real estate investor. Every real estate investor. Here's where it falls apart, Peter, every single time. And thank God, because I have a whole coaching business because of just this one thing. You ask a question, they respond, you fall apart.
Yeah.
What would have to happen for me to buy your house today? Well, give me full asking price, and you go,
yeah, you do a Porky Pig.
Or they say, give me 60 cents on a dollar, and you freeze. Right? And if you understand, and I'm going to cover something today, which, by the way, Peter, I'm making a big thing out of nothing like I usually do because I'm a marketing guy, but I have a definition today that I've been trying to define for a year, and I've got it. And it was not because I found it somewhere else. It's because I read a definition somewhere else. I had another definition in my mind. It took me like 4 dictionaries and my experience to put this definition together in a paragraph. And it's so easy.
Wow. So I had no idea.
I'm going to share that with you.
I had no idea. Sometimes you tell me things that you're on a trail of, a name for something, but I have no idea what this one is.
Yeah. So anyways, enough of this chitter chatter. I hope that our listeners get this. I hope, more importantly, that in the intro of episode number 238, 239, and 240, we covered the importance of knowing these terms and phrases. And I would suspect that you would listen to these podcasts and you write these definitions out. And here's the best thing in the world. And this comes from the book Sean Clouden writes, and you should buy that book, the power, what is it? The Power of Words, or a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Power of Words. Yeah, by Sean Clouden. It's SeanClouden. Go on Amazon. I have no affiliate link. I don't even know the dude. I mean, I know of him, but I don't even know the dude. It's because it will change your life in any industry that you decide to go in. If you decide you want to make pottery this afternoon, it will help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you decide you want to be a car salesman, it will help you with that. You decide you want to make yourself a wealthy multi-million-dollar portfolio and create a real estate, it will definitely help you with that, because that's what it did for me.
Yeah.
It changed my life when I read that book. I was having all kinds of trouble when I read that book, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
And I started using a dictionary and started looking up terms. And now look, everybody like bows at my feet about what a great real estate investor I am. And I'm like, I'm a dumbass, man. I just learned the terms, and I don't mean that derogatorily. I just keep it simple. I don't make it confusing or complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I just do what works, right? Anyway, so enough of that. Let's go on with the words. So
Where'd we leave off last week?
What I want to do is I want to make this statement that I wrote here, because I wrote it. So,
Uh-huh.
Okay, instead of saying it in my own words, let's do what I wrote. Okay, let's work on some words that can help set you free.
Oh,
that's what I want to do.
Okay.
So we're going to start off with, I don't know, I think we ended off in the P's, but I didn't have enough time to do the last P word, which is public notice. So today we're going to start off with public notice.
Okay.
I think the last in episode 239, we ended off with power of attorney or something like that.
I remember covering that.
Yeah. So public notice. This is simply a notice filed on public record to get the world to know about your transaction with the city clerk. So you file public notice on deed with the city clerk. So it's publicly known. Okay. So this is most often done to protect your position, so a seller can't go around you and cut you out of a deal. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of a public notice. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One is a lis pendens. A lis pendens is a word for a lawsuit pending.
It's French, isn't it? I think it's French. No, you said it right. I'm just saying that the word lis pendens is French. That's why it sounds so foreign. It is, but you translate it. But it's French. That's why it sounds so weird.
It means lawsuit pending. Now, why would somebody do that? I'll give you a classic example. Divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So the husband and wife have not decided who gets, like, suppose the husband's on the deed, the wife is not, or the wife is on the deed, or the husband's not, or they're both on the deed. Like, where's the money going to go?
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about a deed in a few minutes. Actually, the next word is quitclaim deeds. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, so I'm going to not do that here. But my point is that's a public notice.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about, and if you go back, I don't know what episode it is, I can find it. If somebody sends me a support ticket at flippinghouses4rookies.com, top right hand side is support ticket. If you send me a support ticket, I will send you the podcast number for this, because I don't want to look it up. I should have done that before we started, but I'm kind of ad hoc in here. The most common thing that we use for public notice is when we buy a property with a land contract. So in Connecticut, it's called a bond for deed. Other states, it's called agreement for deed. It really depends on how the statutes are written on how you would use it. So there's different names, but it's the same thing depending on the states. Like in Texas, it's called an agreement for deed.
Mm-hmm.
In Connecticut, it's bond for deed. I think down in the Carolinas, it's called an agreement for deed. Not an agreement for a land contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's got different names, but it's all the same thing. Basically, here's what happens. When you write that document, it's saying that you're actually purchasing the property. The seller's giving you a mortgage. You're getting principal reduction. You're getting all the benefits of ownership. They're just not giving you the deed until you pay them off. Mm-hmm. So the cool thing about land contracts or bond for deeds or agreement for deeds is that when you use them, okay, and you have to go on 5 years, say you put the term out at 5 years, which is a restriction that you shouldn't use. But if you put it out for 5 years, you can use that document, go to the bank and refinance, because the bank will see that as a mortgage. So minimally, the difference between a bond for deed or a land contract and a lease option, what a lease option, if you execute the option, the bank sees it as a new sale. So you're going to have to put your deposit money down. You're going to have to meet all the bank criteria. Where if you're using the land contract or the agreement for deed, you don't have to do any of that. So
Right.
a good investor will understand the deal and know what his exit strategy is and know which document to use based on that. So if I have, like, for example, I have 2 multifamily houses that I bought, and the guy's lawyer wouldn't let me use an agreement, a bond for deed. He was an idiot. And now we're a year and a half into the deal, and I'm talking to the seller, and I'm like, you realize if we go for bond for deed, I don't have to go for a new loan, and I'd do that this year. If I got to just refinance and cash you out, I would do that this year. But if I got to wait, I'm going to wait till the year 5. He's like, really? I didn't know that. I'm like, I know, because your lawyer misguided you. Yeah, he kind of did, didn't he?
Mm.
You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Even the lawyers who are supposed to be an index of these words, because really think about it. I mean, I had this happen to me at the cigar shop last night. I have a guy he's a multimillionaire. He's a trust baby. His grandfather started the fortune, you know, and so he's a trust baby. But he said, and I paraphrase, he said, I don't read that shit. I have my lawyer do all of that. That's his job.
Mm.
What is he saying to me? He's saying, I don't understand all those words. I can't comprehend what they say. I'm going to give it to my attorney. Rah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What happens if the attorney doesn't understand it?
Yeah. And who cares more? Who cares more, him or the attorney?
Yeah, so
attorney or nice, you know.
You're turning your fortune over, your hard-earned money over to an attorney, expecting that he understands the words.
Yeah.
Best thing you can do is read it and look up the words in the dictionary and make sure you understand it yourself and question it. Okay.
Yep.
So the reason why you have public notice is to make sure that in these creative real estate deals that you're put on the title. Now, I don't know if I should get into this, but a lot of times you'll use a memorandum instead of the actual document. It's a specific type. It's just a 1-page document that summarizes what you're doing. It's called a memorandum.
Mm.
Sometimes you can use memorandums to cloud a title. So in other words, clouding a title means you're putting something on it, saying that you have a stake in the property and they have to come to you for some sort of a release, which means you get paid off. Often, like suppose you have a $10,000 lien on the property and you want to put a lien on the property, you can go cloud the title, knowing that when they come back, they're going to not want to pay 10 grand, but maybe you get 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 grand.
Mm-hmm.
You negotiate, but you have the leverage. Now, some good sleazy attorneys can get around that stuff, but the likelihood is that it can be done. So in other words, clouding the title means that you are putting a barrier there so that when they go to pass the title later on and they're looking to get their property sold, right? Yeah. They have to come deal with you then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So hopefully that makes sense. It's all done with public notice. That's why the word is so important. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now let's move on to quit claim deed. Quit claim. So it's spelled Q-U-I-T. And it's all one word. Yeah, it's all one word. Quick claim. Quit claim. Q-U-I-T-C-L-A-I-M. Quit claim. It's all one word. It's a very specific definition. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is a fast claim in announcing the person drafting the document is saying, I no longer claim that I own interest or liability in this property because I'm handing it over to you.
They quit.
Right. So this fast claim is announcing the person that's drafting it is saying, I no longer claim that I own interest or liability in this property because I'm handing it over to you. It is not a document of convenience as much as a document of disclaimer of interest in favor of someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Or disclaim interest in a specific named property
Mm-hmm.
or a lack of interest in a specific named property.
Right.
It is not a deed. Okay, I didn't write this, but let me grab a book here. I'm going to grab something. 1 second. I'm going to read something to you.
Yeah, you got my attention on that last part, that it's not a deed.
It's not a deed. So here's what makes a deed. And I wasn't sure of this, and I was with my attorney yesterday and asked him this.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to have these 7 things to make a deed.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not going to explain them now because we should have done that back in the deed section, but I'm going to just rattle them off. Okay. So the necessary elements to make a deed are: you need to have a grantor. That's the individual or entity that owns the property and is transferring it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a grantee. That's the individual or entity that's receiving the transfer.
Right.
You have to have a property description sufficient to identify the property that is owned by the grantor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have to have consideration, which means money.
Yeah.
No longer required in some states and not even required to be stated correctly in any state. We use in consideration when we write our deeds as much as possible, especially our creative real estate deeds. Now, you can't do this if you're buying a house and paying cash. If you're borrowing money and you're buying a house and paying cash, you can't do this, or it's harder to do.
Mm.
But in our subject to deals and all those deals, we use $1 and other valuable consideration. The reason why we use $1 is because to be a deed, to make our new deed, we have to have consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So number 5 is the habendum clause.
There's a word.
Yeah. So that means the exact rights to be transferred from grantor to grantee. And that's done in one sentence, and it's usually to have and to hold.
Oh.
So every deed has that sentence or something correct to it or close to it, is to have and to hold.
Okay.
Okay. Number 6, you need to have a signature, which in legal terms is actually called the execution.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Usually requires to be in front of a notary public, right? But surprisingly not always. Now, like in Connecticut, you have to notary public. So what is the notary public doing? And this is where there's a major confusion, because some of the notary publics I don't use are because of this reason, because the notary public somehow, some way has misunderstoods in their training and think that they need to look at the document and advise the signator what they're signing. Like an attorney.
Yeah.
Banks are known for this. When you go to banks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The reason why is because what happens is there's lawsuits, and they get called in these lawsuits. The purpose of a notary public is to witness the signature saying, yes, I checked the identification. Yes, I believe this is the person who's signing. Like if there's notarying my signature, yes, I checked William Hawthorne's identification, usually my driver's license, and it is him. The signature is the same, and I did witness him actually signing it with his hand. It's kind of like in the old days, they used the stamp of approval with wax, remember?
Yeah.
And the stamp, the only one that had that stamp was the person signing it, usually the king, right?
Yeah,
queen,
right.
So all they're supposed to be doing is witnessing that. Now, in the state of Connecticut, you need to have a notary and 2 witnesses. So there's 3 signatures, and the notary can be a witness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all it is it's the execution of the document. That's what a signature is.
Okay.
The last one is number 7, which is the delivery, which just means it completes the transaction and it's recorded in public records.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to have a deed, you have to have a grantor, grantee, property description, consideration, which is money, the habendum clause, which is to have and to hold, the signature, delivery, and then you have a deed. Okay, so what happens is the quit claim doesn't have all of that. So it's not considered a deed.
So the burning question I've been holding off asking till you get through that at least. I have a quit claim. Other people have quit claims on properties, like passed in a family, but not the deed.
Right.
So do you need a deed at some point?
Yes.
So the quit claim would have to be changed, or a deed also done at some point.
Well, you don't have title to the property.
Okay.
So remember, we covered that in the last episode, right? Title is the deed is the ownership of the property.
Yep.
Title is you have rights to that ownership. So you don't have title to that property. You know, my attorney told me yesterday, which I didn't know. He said, you know, Bill, quit claims are an old tool. I'm like, what do you mean? He says it used to be back in the day. Now, he's probably in his mid 40s, so it can't be that long ago, right? He's probably 45, 47. If he's 50, I'd be surprised, right?
Yeah.
He says back in the day, the banks used to use quit claims as a lien release when the loan was paid off. Right. So think about this. It's the person drafting it is saying, I no longer claim that I own interest or liability in this property because I'm handing it over to you.
That makes sense.
Right. What are they handing over to you? The rights to the deed. And what is the deed? I just explained that to you.
Yeah.
It's a little bit complicated, but do you see what I'm talking about when I go back and I say, is it distorted just a little bit?
Yeah.
Has anybody ever explained to you what a quit claim deed is? The guys that are on Facebook and YouTube, answer me, please. Have you ever heard anybody ever explain this? Have you ever read this anywhere? Is this common knowledge? How many times have you talked about a deed or a warranty deed or a quit claim? How many times have you used that language and not really known what it meant? You see what
Bill,
I'm saying?
I just dropped off a packet this thick on my own parents' home that was quit claimed to me 5 years ago to, the government. So, for Medicaid assist, that whole story. And what you're saying now is like, I have to call my lawyer and ask a question like, hey, how do I get the deed, buddy? Because,
Right.
I thought that was the end of the story kind of, but you're right. And they're not asking for the deed. They're asking to ask me, show me the quit claim. But there's more to the story I'm finding out because I didn't know this. So it gives me one more thing to look into now. Another step for me to do.
No, I'm not saying that you can't. I mean, maybe you can pass title because but it just, there's going to have to be a new deed drawn, and you need to make sure that you can execute that deed because remember what I said. What was the last thing I said? You have to execute the deed. You got to file it, right?
Yeah.
So does it have the recommendations or the qualifications of what a deed does? So based on what I just told you, the 7 things that you need, right, to have a deed, do you have those?
Right.
You don't.
No, I didn't read it to check those off. I have some of those, I know, but yeah. So my point is, it gives me something to look at to understand better, so I'm in better control of the situation I'm in. I'm sure I'm okay with what I'm doing right now, but moving forward, I got to check more things. Good thing my neighbor is two houses away, my lawyer. But I still have to call him 5 cities away to talk to him. And it takes 4 days before he answers, how it goes. But he answered me just in time yesterday. All right. Well, that's good. See, that helps me.
Good.
Thanks, Bill.
So thanks, guys, for responding, Desiree and Juan, saying that they have never, they were no, and most times until now, they haven't understood the word quit claim. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go a little bit deeper into this profound pool and talk about a revocable trust. That's the next word, revocable trust. This one phrase is hard to describe because there is no such thing. And there's a lot of false data attached to it. Okay. Here's why. The word trust, by legal definition, is not revocable.
Okay.
Okay. Revocable means capable of being reversed or canceled.
Yep.
So revocable means capable of being reversed or undone or canceled. Okay. So revocable trust is actually an oxymoron. or it's two words that contradict one another to make a new definition. So revocable trust is one of those things that it's two words that contradict one another, because revocable means that you can reverse it or undo it, and trust is a legal definition saying that you can't revoke it.
Great.
So they're like working against one another. Okay. So for the sake of not using the rest of this podcast on this one phrase, let's just say a trust is like a business with an owner and a manager.
Mm-hmm.
In a trust, the owner is called the beneficiary.
Okay.
John says, is an irrevocable trust redundant? Yes, it is. So let's say a trust is like a business with an owner and a manager. So in the trust, the owner is called the beneficiary, and the manager is called the trustee.
Mm-hmm.
So suppose I was an accountant and I wanted to buy a transmission shop.
Okay.
So who's the owner?
The accountant, if he buys it.
Me as the accountant, right?
Yep.
So then I have somebody in there running the business, the manager. Do I need to be there every day to manage him?
Nope.
Right. So does he have the authorization to possibly sign checks and make decisions on invoices and parts and all kinds of things like that, right?
Sure.
Now, can I monitor him? Yes. Can I advise him? Yes. Can I make sure he's doing the right thing? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like what I've done in the past with people like that is I give them a checkbook with a limited amount of funds in it so they can't steal it from me or they can't do the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
So the real money's in my checkbook, and as they write checks, I fund the other checkbook.
Yeah.
So they never really glom anything from me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is the way a trust works. Is you have an owner and you have a manager. The owner is the beneficiary, which, by the way, could be you or it could be an entity. It could be your LLC. It could be an S corporation. It could be anything like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you have the trustee. The beneficiary doesn't sign any documents, because think of it this way. What's the purpose of a trust? I form a trust, and then my children and my wife are in the trust. It's made because if I die, I could no longer run the trust, right?
Mm.
So it's actually like my hat turnover to life. It's like my job description for life. It's like I'm turning over what I do and how I do it in the trust. So the trust has the direction of what to do if I become incapacitated or dead.
Mm.
So the beneficiary doesn't have the power to sign, even though it owns everything. Even though I own it as a beneficiary, I don't have the power to sign anything, because technically a trust is designed so when I die, the entity can continue on.
Right.
Right. Very important to understand that, because like in a particular case like me, and I'm going through this now, it's taking longer than I thought and much more expensive than I thought it was going to be. But setting up a trust allows it so that in my particular case, and I'm going way off of the deep end and I shouldn't be talking about this, but just get this concept. My entities, and I have multiple LLCs, don't own the shares of those entities. My trust does.
Mm.
So the trust controls the entities through the ownership of the shares. Mm. So now I set the trust up. I don't have to redo my financial, my will every time I buy it. See, because what happens with a guy like me? I'm constantly buying property. So how often would I have to update my will?
Mm. Yeah,
every time I buy a property?
That's not practical.
But if I set up a trust and it runs the shares of the LLCs buy the properties, and then the trust runs the LLCs, I don't have to update my will at all. I don't have to update anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's all running smooth. So if something happens to me, I become incapacitated, or if I die or something like that, then then the trust will run the way I tell the trust to run. I've given specific instructions in the trust on how to run it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm went way too deep with that, and I hope that it wasn't too fast. But the point is that it's like a business. So I've set up this trust, so it's like a business. And the reason why I'm so protective of it, I'm extremely protective of it, is because of this. I borrow a lot of money from a lot of friends, people that I know and like. They're not strangers. I borrowed millions and millions and millions of dollars from a select few relatives that are in their 80s. And love me making money for them. Right?
Yeah.
Something happens to me and I go into probate, and all of a sudden there's no signators, or the accounts get frozen because of probate. How do they get their dough?
Yeah.
So it's more to me than just my kids and my wife. It's all my friends and my business. It's people like you, where we have a relationship and we have an LLC together and we have money together. I don't want to have suppose I got stupid and got drunk and I killed myself in a car accident, or got killed in a car accident. It's not fair to you that your business should stop because that happened. So I feel like the dynamic of what I'm talking about is huge. Okay. It's not just a little piece of dough. You know what I mean? It's keeping the entity going. Plus all that money that's taken me 20 years to put together. Some of it I've lost. I've been wealthy 3 times and lost it 3 times. I mean, a multimillionaire 3 times and I've lost it 3 times. Okay. For various reasons. It won't happen this time, but that's part of my education. That's part of why I am who I am. That's part of why I give the advice that I give, is because I've been on the bottom 3 times. I've been on the top 3 times. So I've gotten smart on how to do it. At least I think I have anyways. I mean, some might have the argument, well, you lost it 3 times. Why would I listen to you? Well, I've been doing pretty good this last swing. So the point
you learn from your mistakes too. That's the whole point. I mean, look at any bazillionaire, all of them. They've all done that. Every one of them. That's the point. Making money, becoming wealthy isn't an accident. It's done by sheer will and knowledge and application, whatever. And, things can go sideways sometimes. The world isn't perfect. But if you're that kind of person, you just go do it again. Right. The ship goes down, you get another ship. The ship goes down, you get another ship. And try to keep it going. That's life. So
I kind of went off on a tangent there on trust, but I think that you got some value out of that, because it's a beautiful entity. It's beautiful. You wouldn't be where you are. Desiree says you wouldn't be where you are without those mistakes. Absolutely.
Yeah, look at the bumps on Bill's head. Look at those.
Yeah, those are scars, brother.
Hey, I have one question. You talked earlier, I think, about trusts. We're not at trust, but you said there's a different kind of trust. And the one you're talking about now, is that called the family trust?
The one where I talked about owning the LLCs?
Yeah, the one you're doing for you.
Yes.
Family trust. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So we talked about in the last episode, the trusts that we use are very specific. They are called property trust or land trusts. And they're used, they are much different than any other kind of trust. And I will tell you, as I explained in episode number 239, you should go listen to that definition of a land trust or property trust. Those are the magic of how we do subject twos. Most attorneys don't know how, or they don't know the ease or how easy it is when they try to set up a trust. They're trying to set up a land trust or a revocable or revocable or irrevocable trust, right? Which John says is, it's kind of redundant. He's right. It's just one of those words. So they're trying to set up the wrong type of trust.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where the education comes in. And that's where knowing these words and terms will give you quantum leaps ahead, because you don't have to go by just because I said it. Look it up in a dictionary. Go find a real estate dictionary and look it up and read it to the attorney. You don't have to go by my opinion. It's what I'm telling you is something you can search and find online.
Use your phone. Use your phone.
Not that online is even that, because people put their opinions on there and they could have misunderstandings too. Half the data online is like bullshit anyways, but get a good dictionary, looking at a couple different dictionaries and look it up and do your research on the words. That's my point. And then when you talk to the attorney, you say, no, here it is, and read the definition, or send him the link. And what's he going to do now? Right? The part that I don't understand, Peter, and this irritates the living crap out of me. Last time I looked, which was, about a few months ago, I average around $500 an hour. That's what I get paid, around 500. Any activity I do, I've got 9 sources of income, and any one of them, when I work there, I get about $500 an hour.
It's pretty impressive, Bill.
Thank you. My attorney gets $125 an hour. Why would I ask him for advice? That's what most of my students do. They got to go talk to their attorney or talk to their accountant. My accountant makes $125 an hour or $150 an hour. Why would I ask it? But there's a difference. And the difference is when you're going to make a move or when you're going to do something, you want to ask, what are the ramifications of me doing this? And let their professionalism give you advice so you could make the decision.
Yeah.
And that's really all you do. But attorneys are pompous, arrogant SOBs that think that they know everything and that they're the wisest people on the planet, right? And they should give you advice. But they don't understand real estate investing. I have yet learned of an investor or heard of an investor that actually does hardcore real estate investing, other than, buying on the MLS and paying cash for properties and, using banks and all that kind of stuff. I've yet to meet a good attorney that does creative real estate investing. I've yet to meet that person.
Yeah.
So just be careful. We got to move on because we're so behind schedule. Seller financing. Seller financing. We covered this in episode number 238 and 239 in more detail, but in short, means the seller is becoming the bank or the lender for the loan to buy the property. This word is crucial, very major crucial to creative real estate investors. This one word is like the word option. It's a major, if you don't understand what seller financing means, you can't be a creative real estate investor. You just can't. It's impossible. That's like saying you're a professional skier and don't own skis. It just can't happen. You're a motorcycle racer and don't own a motorcycle. It can be done, but you're not it. Right?
So seller financing sounds simple. Is there some nuances to this that we need?
Well, what happens is at the end of the day, right, with all of our training, our sole job, in other words, our only job is to take the property sellers and turn them into lenders or investors with great and safe rates of return. Major point is our system, once you explain it correctly, the advantages to the seller, they will always feel it's a better deal. So you're taking a property owner that thinks they have a piece of property that they're selling, and you're suggesting they become an investor. They take the asset that they already own and they figure out how to get more money and a better rate of return with that asset. Because we ask very often, you're going to get $100,000. What are you going to do with it? I don't know. I'm going to just put it in the bank. Or, that's why we ask that question, because are they just looking for the cash to solve some of the problem? And they're short-minded and don't realize they could do that. Let me give you an example of this. And then I don't want to, because I can spend a whole podcast just on this, right? So let me give you an example of this. My oldest daughter called me up, says that her husband, this is a couple of years ago, says that her husband wants to buy a pickup truck. Now, he was the runt of a pack of 3 or 4 when he was a kid. The poor guy, his mom died when he was very young, and he just his dad was kind of a tough guy, and he's just had a rough go at it. He's a great guy, but he's just had a rough go at it. So the gang that he hung around with, he was the runt, and he was the one that got pushed around. So they're still, now they're adults and all that is past, but they all have nice $30,000, $40,000 pickup trucks, and he doesn't. So there you go, right? Now, he may not agree to this if he listens to this podcast, and he might give me shit about it later on, but this is my opinion. So she calls me up, and she's like, I can't talk him out of buying this $30,000 pickup truck. What do I do? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. She goes, what do you mean? I'm like, Jess, I have a very strong opinion, and I don't want to get in the middle of between you and Josh. She goes, okay, now you got to tell me.
Yeah.
I'm like, here's what I would do. I got a 2-family house that I can sell you. You should buy my 2-family house. And from the proceeds of that 2-family house, you should pay for those truck payments. Which, by the way, they did buy the 2-family house. They went and got a 401k money, borrowed money out of their 401k, which they leveraged that money too. So they leveraged the money out of the 401k. They bought this 2-family house. They make enough money to pay for the truck and multiple other bills. They make like $1,000 a month off of this property. So now what happens? I said he should take the deposit money that he would use to pay for that truck, and he should put it down on this house. So he has the truck and he has the house. So basically what happens is in 5 years or 10 years, when the truck is worn out, he doesn't have a $30,000 bill that he paid with nothing left. Just the pleasure of the truck. That's considered a liability. What he did is he invested in the asset of the house. He still has the house. It's still spitting off his payments. He goes and buys another truck. It doesn't make any difference because the asset's just spitting off that payment.
Yep.
Right? That's being an investor. That's training your seller to be an investor. Right? So our core job at the end of the day is to trip that trigger, as we spoke about a couple podcasts ago, trip that trigger to get them to be an investor. So at the end of the day, when you understand seller financing, it's not you begging or borrowing for their money. They're begging and borrowing to use their money. No, you're helping them take their asset into a better position that will give them a fantastic rate of return that they probably can't get anywhere else. 1, by reducing their cost to sell, and 2, by giving them a higher number because you're giving them principal only payment, and 3, saving them money on capital gains tax and taxes and all that kind of stuff. Then you have appreciation, depreciation, all that kind of stuff. I often say there's 2 ways to make money with real estate. That's a lie, right?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Because you said so. I go along with you. No, because there's those other things. I just went through my taxes last year. I made a lot big chunks of money. I paid less tax a year than normal. I said to my wife, "Are you sure we're okay?" We told them all the numbers, right? Because I finished paying my taxes a long time ago for this year. And it's like, this is good. I like
There's
this.
actually 4 ways to make money with real estate, but I don't talk about the other 2 because I don't believe in them. What I shouldn't say I don't believe with them.
Well, you don't count on that for your deals, especially if they're a short-term deal or a long-term. If it's good without those other 2 factors, it's a great deal, and that's gravy. The other 2, right?
Yeah. So let me explain. So you have appreciation, which means the property goes up in value. Depreciation, which means you can claim it on your taxes and you can pay less taxes. Then you have equity and you have cash flow, like we talk about. But the appreciation and depreciation I don't talk about because to me those are extra. When I get them, hooray. But I'm not going to put them in my deal structure to do that.
Yeah, because appreciation, things can crash and there's no appreciation,
Right. So Desiree says, can I please explain principal only payments? So basically what that means is I'm taking a loan from someone and I'm not paying interest. That's all it means.
Yeah.
So if I make a $500 a month payment, I'm reducing my debt by $500 when I make that payment. Where if it's not principal, where you have what the bank does is they charge interest and maybe 200 goes to interest and 300 goes to principal reduction.
Yeah.
Or however it's split up. Okay. So she says, where does the number come from? I'm not sure what number she's talking
about. Like the payment?
Yeah.
Maybe
so
the payment.
You're not paying, like on free and clear. Yeah. Property. So, anyways. Yeah, so free and clear property is usually where we make those offers. Okay, but that's getting into deal structuring. All right. How we doing?
What letter are we on?
We're on S, so we're going to
S?
move on. We're going to
Can
move
make
on.
it? It'll be episode 4.
No, we're going to make it because I'm going to make it happen.
Right, go ahead. I'll be quiet. Go ahead.
S, subordinate financing.
Oh,
Financing.
I've seen that one. Crap, I don't think I remember though. I've seen it. Go ahead. Subordinate
This
financing.
is debt. I thought you said you were going to be quiet.
Wow, just talking to myself now. Don't listen to me.
I'm just busting your balls. This is debt financed and placed on a property after the primary financing is completed. We do this with our notes a lot on subject to deals. Put them behind the banker's lien. So we buy a house we take over somebody's mortgage for $120,000, offer to pay them $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
So the bank's lien is already in place. We call that a multiple mortgage strategy. So the banker's lien is in place for 120. We put together a note, or a note, or a promissory note, or and we put it on the deed behind the main lien. What that means is that when the payoff comes, the bank gets their money first.
Mm.
So if they only get 120 grand, that second mortgage doesn't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
If they get 140 grand, then you would pay 20,000 to the second note and 120 to the first. If you got 160 grand, then you would pay the full $40,000 off and pay the first. Okay. But a subordinate lien means that it's lower than or lesser than the first mortgage. So the first mortgage or the first lien gets paid first.
Yeah.
Okay. They're second. Subordinate means they're second or they're lesser than the first.
Yeah. Sub meaning under. Right. Like submarine, under. It's under it.
Okay. So
that was quick.
I promise you that I am not going to take the rest of the podcast on my most favorite term that I never talk about. I never talk about it, but boy, do I love it. When I learned this word years ago, I thought I was the hottest real estate investor ever to mankind. I did. I really thought it was.
Yeah.
This is a $5 word to throw around when you're in the room of investors.
Oh. And what's that?
Substitution of collateral.
Oh, that sounds really fancy.
Collateral is what the buyer pledges as security when borrowing from a lender.
Mm.
So it's collateral is what the buyer pledges as security when borrowing from a lender. In the case of real estate, it is always the property itself.
Mm-hmm.
So with our creative deals, we write notes often with our sellers. Then we sell on lease options. So we acquire the property however we acquire it, one of the 7 ways, right? And then we most often sell on a lease option, right? Which means the buyer could get a loan and cash everyone out before the expiration date of the option agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when that happens, right, instead of paying off the seller, you could offer the seller a discount, right, today to pay it off early. Like, for example, I owe you 50 grand. Will you take 30 instead of waiting 3 more years?
Mm.
Right. So you owe him 50 grand. Would you take, you're 2 years into a 5-year mortgage, right? Or a 5-year note or agreement. You could say to him, would you take $30,000 or do you want to wait the other 3 years for the 30 grand? If he or she says, no, I don't want to take a discount, you then ask them if they're willing to switch the collateral.
Mm.
So now what you do is you close with your buyer, you get the 50 grand on the table. In other words, your buyer bought the property, you do the closing, your seller is going to sign a lien release, right? You're going to do this with a lawyer. It's a little bit of orchestrating to do. And then you're going to take that 50 grand and put it onto another property for 3 more years.
Mm.
So basically what you just did is you just created a lender.
Mm.
with $30,000 because you owe them 30,000
Mm-hmm.
or the whole 50,000, whatever you owe them. Right? If you like my notes, I do no interest, no payments.
Yeah.
So I pay it off at the sale. So in my case, it would be when we close, I would have 50 grand of my seller's money that I can put onto another property. So I have 50 grand that I could use on another property. So here's the point. The point is, what if you don't have another property to buy? So what I have done in the past, not that I've done this a lot, I've just done it a few times, but I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an amazing thing. What you do is you go pay off another mortgage.
Right.
Right.
Just something else that you own that you owe some money on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Especially if I'm making payments on that other mortgage. Suppose I have a second mortgage or another mortgage and I'm paying on that. I have a no interest, no payment mortgage that I could put on the property, and I can change the cash flow. Now, this is not easy to do. This is an advanced strategy, but I just want to explain that this is what substitution of collateral means.
Well, the takeaway I'm getting is like you close out a deal and you have to, you think I got to pay the guy back. Well, okay, hold on. You could, or maybe you can ask him to keep it to do something else with it. Just think, what could I do with it if I kept it?
You ask for a discount first, and if he says no, then you say, here's what I want to do then.
Yeah. The discount first, yeah, I got that up my sleeve this year too on one of mine. Yay. I like that strategy.
Yeah. I mean, you just ask, and 99% of the time, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. That's what they say. That's the saying. In other words, if you're hungry, you better have the bird in your hand than thinking there's two in the bush and you can catch them. You know what I mean? So it's important to know this because it is an advanced strategy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, is all the reasons why I call my coaching advanced coaching, because when this happens in there, I walk people through this stuff all the time. It's more than just, the coaching guys. I've got one coaching client that buys 7 or 8 deals a month. I've got some that haven't bought a deal at all. So I got an array, and the group is not that big right now. I've got it small. It's probably not as good for my pocketbook as it should be, but luckily it's not all about my pocketbook with me. I've got a good group now. I keep a tight rein on them, and I help them a lot. During the week I help them a lot, especially my Israel group. Those guys run me ragged, but they're doing deals. They're doing deals. So does that make sense? The substitution of collateral.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, good. Next word is title insurance. This insurance is to cover the condition of the title. Now, remember what I told you: the deed owns the property, you have title to it. So so Pete Coca-Cola has title to 123 Main Street. So in other words, you have the rights to own 123 Main Street, and it's clarified on the deed. So the deed is the evidence of the ownership. Right? So all a deed is the deed is actually the physical evidence of who has title and when those rights have changed hands. So the purpose of a deed is to change ownership or change title.
Is that as simple as the name on the deed? Like your title, right? Because your name is your title.
Yeah.
Some of these words like title, like what does that mean? Like it's your name.
Yeah.
And if you write it on
the name, it doesn't have to be your name. It could be your entity name. It could be the name of the ownership. So the title is, like my title is Mr. William Hawthorne.
Yep.
Right. And if you're my mother and you're mad at me, it's William Herbert. Get your ass over here. Yes. So there you go. All right. So title insurance covers this chain of ownership for mistakes made while the owner had the title of rights. So every time the title changes name on the deed, in other words, there's new ownership on the name, on the deed, right? Every time it does that, so whether you own that property for one day or if you owned it for one decade, there's a period when you had title. In other words, you were the owner. God forbid the paperwork for the title was done incorrect or incorrectly. During that period, you are responsible to fix that, even if it was found 10 years later.
Yeah.
You're responsible to fix that error because you have title. This is no different than me owning a car dealership. One of my employees driving on one of my dealer plates smashes the car and does damage to somebody else's car. I'm responsible for it because I own the car, I own the dealer plate, I own the business, my insurance or I have liability now.
Yeah.
It's no different than that. You have title. So it doesn't matter that your attorney made a mistake. It doesn't matter that your title clerk made a mistake. You're supposed to be instructing them, and you're supposed to know enough to make sure they don't make a mistake, just like an employee. Right? And most people don't look at it that way. They think that the lawyer, they put the lawyer on a pedestal, which means the only thing he could do is look down on them, which is a mistake. You own it. You're in charge. You are the one that has to make sure all this takes care of. So what you're doing is you're buying title insurance because most of us aren't that clever. We don't have that crystal ball to find out what's going to happen later on.
Yeah.
So we buy an insurance policy to cover it. So if there is a problem 10 years down the road, you call the title insurance company up and they go fix it. Now, here's what happens. The insurance company is an insurance company, which I don't have many good things to say about insurance companies because insurance companies are designed to make a 35% profit. They know they have 65% by law. They have a 65% payout. So they can't have a 50% payout. They have to have 65% because the government tells them they have to pay out at least 65%. Right?
Didn't know that.
Because what happens is they could tell you no, that it doesn't cover the claim, and they could buffalo people because of policies, and they could just say no, we're not going to pay them, and that's against the law. So the government gives them percentages of how much they have to do for claims and how much they can make for profit, right? Because otherwise you could get insurance companies that would keep 95% of the money and never pay claims.
Sure.
Right. So there's laws in place for that. So my point is this: in title insurance, it's not like that. It's the opposite of your car insurance and your house insurance and all that other stuff. It's completely opposite. They don't have those laws because here's what happens. The title company does a title search. This is where the word title search comes involved. Right. We so easily sling that language around like it's something for us. It has nothing to do with us. It's not designed for us. The title search is for the title insurance company to scan back 50 or 100 years and look at the chain of title to see if there's any errors, because once they insure that title, they're responsible. So the purpose of a title company is to go find clean titles, insure clean titles, and not have the payouts.
So it's like when they make you take a medical test before they give you medical, health insurance. Right. Why take on make sure it's a real car, not a right. Don't insure something that would cost you money.
Right. That would be a liability, right? So fortunately for us, the title insurance company does that automatically when you buy title, and the business is trained to do that. So we use those title searches to make sure that we're not taking on any encumbrances or any debt or any problems when they give us the deed.
And if there is, they have to pay for it because they did the search, and it's their mistake if they missed it. That's what you're paying for?
So warranty deed means that the buyer, the seller, is warrantying to the seller that you're giving them clean title with all that stuff gone. So what's all that stuff? All that stuff is what you find in the title search. So when they do the title search, they're going to come back and say, well, there's this lien and that lien and this lien and that lien and that. Okay, good. So now you instruct your closing agents, you need to get your seller, or if you're the seller, you need to fix it, or you need to get your seller to fix that.
Right. Before it changes hands. It's like a hot potato. Last guy who has it, you got to go fix it, right?
Right. And I personally love those titles when they're all messed up like that, because I get severe discounts and within weeks I can fix them. I love those. And the only reason why is because I'm not smart. And I'm not trying to degrade myself. It's not because I'm smart. It's because I've looked these words up and I understand them and I understand the process like I'm explaining it to you. So for me, I have this knowledge behind me, and you can have it too just by looking these words up. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This is a quantum leap for your education. Is go get Sean Cloudon's book, The Power of Words, read it. Once you read it and understand how to clear up your words, go back and read it again so you get it for real.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the first time you're going to read it and not know what a misunderstood word is, and you're going to go past the word. So read it, learn the concept, and then go back and read the book again so you really get it. Right? So the only reason why I've excelled the way I have is because of this. And it's boring. What I'm talking about is boring. These definitions are boring.
Yeah, it's hard work too sometimes, but I want to make $100,000. Sorry, you have to work for it one way or the other, and this is part of it. Make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you understand what you're doing. And it's not as simple as just reading the words of a definition. There's some work involved, some extra work, steps to do to make sure you understand it, how to use it. There's a couple of steps to do, not just read it. Oh, I didn't get it. Well, don't just read it and don't get it. Follow the book and give you some instructions how to get it. So you go, oh, I'm a teacher. I have music students. A lot of them have already learned instruments. They've been in school. They've been in classes, in orchestras, bands. And I ask them some things. They go, I don't know. And I explain. They go, holy crap, and the smile on their face, because people love to understand. So it's a good feeling.
You go to court, and I promise you, if there's a word the judge doesn't understand, he's going to go in his chambers and look it up, and they're going to be literal with it. So make sure you know what those words are, because I've been there before. All right, Peter, we got to roll down here. Last word in the surprise, the definition that I bragged about in the beginning of the show.
Really?
We need a drum roll.
Is this the last word?
It's the last word.
Wow. 0. Xylophone.
Are you done?
What is it, Bill?
Well, I'm waiting for you to stop talking.
Okay, I'm done. What is it?
I'm being a jerk. Wraparound financing or wraparound mortgage.
Yeah. All right, let's have it.
In simple, it's when you sell a property which already has a loan without paying that loan off, and the seller finances the new buyer without having to pay off that loan. So I buy a property from you. You have a loan for 120.
Mm-hmm.
You sell it to me for 150, and you don't have to pay. You can give me a loan without paying your loan off.
Mm-hmm.
The new buyer pays the seller monthly payments, and the seller continues to pay his or her lender.
So it's like you have a loan with the seller, which covers the loan with the bank. So he gets the money and pays the bank. And then if you owe him more, you pay that too, like a little bit beyond that.
So suppose his mortgage is $1,100.
Yeah.
I promise to pay him $1,300.
Right, because you're paying a little bit more for the house, not just the mortgage. You might owe a little more because it's just worth a little more.
Right. So he gives me a mortgage for $150,000, say $1,300 a month.
Mm-hmm.
When I give him the $1,300 a month, he pays the underlying mortgage $1,100. The bank allows this, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
This is very legal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's happy.
Mm.
Is that a lot simpler?
That's crazy good.
This can only happen with an existing mortgage or deed of trust in place. You don't do this on free and clear houses.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But often we talk about somebody that has a free and clear house, go get a line of credit, borrow the money. So what we do is we take the deal from a free and clear deal and turn it into a subject to deal or a wraparound mortgage deal.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah.
By the way, right? Actually, I skipped a paragraph. Or the seller will be agreeing to, which I just said, be agreeing to sell the property subject to the existing debt and all the contractual rules, and then give you a second loan for his or her profit, all in one note. So it's cleaner.
So you don't do two separate notes, one for the bank, one separate, because it wraps
in
around.
one document. It's in one document.
And one check too that he has to split up himself.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So basically what wraparound financing or wraparound mortgage is when somebody gives you a loan and they have an underlying loan in position already.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a wraparound mortgage is. Okay. By the way, let's cover this for our last point for the definition, for this definition series. I don't know why I wrote that. When you get a mortgage on real estate, here is how it actually works. So I'm going to cover, this is not necessarily to do with wraparound, but it's going to explain the wraparound a lot better.
Okay.
Okay. So when you go get a mortgage, so I'm going to prove my point in a punchline before we end off here. This is my what do you call it when the band is all done and they come back out?
This is your encore.
This is my encore. Yeah.
This is Italian. Now, encore is Italian for more.
Okay. So this is my encore. Okay.
Okay.
So here we go. So often people sling around the word mortgage. I have a mortgage. I got to pay off the mortgage. The mortgage. I would venture to say, betting a $50 cigar, a box of $50 cigars, how's that? Each, $50 each, right? That most people, when you ask them, what is the definition of a mortgage? Don't have a clue.
Yeah. Or the wrong meaning. Or the wrong thing.
Let me explain. Mm-hmm. So what happens when you buy a house and borrow money from a lender, there's a note that's drafted.
And that means a loan, right? You say note, you mean a loan.
So I'm getting a loan from someone, whether it's usually the bank.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's just use the bank just for an example, because everybody understands that. But I'm getting a loan from the bank.
Yeah.
The first thing that happens, and I'll listen to my words very specifically, there's a note that's drafted. What does drafted mean? Drafted means here is what I want, review it, and make sure you agree before you sign. So why am I saying the note is drafted? Because I have to agree to the terms within the note. So the note is a document that clarifies the rules, when to pay, how much to pay, where to pay. It's got all the specifics of what I want as a lender, including the default. So if you default, here's what I'm going to do, and you know it up front. Right? So that's the note. It talks about where to send the checks. It talks about if you're late, what the penalties are. It talks about if the place burns down, how the insurance is going to work. It talks about eminent domain, which means if the city comes along and wants to take the property, how are we going to split the money up? Who gets paid when? Who gets paid where? If there's a fire and there's an insurance claim, who gets what money and how? Indemnification, all these fancy words.
Yeah.
And those are all the rules of what's going to happen in the future. That's the note. Okay. It explains everything.
Yeah.
But this clever little document is much like toilet paper. Unless you put up some security. So the bank puts up $200,000 and they have this note. And so what? It's like toilet paper unless you attach security to it. You attach collateral to it. So if I don't pay, I'm taking something of yours that has value.
Yeah.
Preferably the value of what I'm lending you. Right? Car companies do it with cars.
Sure.
They use the car as collateral. You don't pay, they repo it. Right? This little device that's called collateral is the mortgage. So you have to connect the note. So let me keep reading my notes here. But the only way to attach this note to the property is with a mortgage, which is separate from the note. So the mortgage is the bridge to put the collateral and the note together legally. The mortgage is not all the rules and regulations. The note is. But the note is like toilet paper. You can, I mean, really, I'm not being funny. I'm not being sarcastic. It's like toilet paper. It's useless until you attach it to the property as collateral. So a mortgage is attaching collateral to the note. And then there's a bunch of laws that allow the lender and borrower certain rights at the time of the mortgage. So you just can't willy-nilly create a mortgage. There's a bunch of laws on what type of mortgages and how you can attach them. So the mortgage has its own set of rules, mostly on default. Okay. So now we talked about this before, but take a look at foreclosure. So when you don't pay so if I lent you money, Peter, and you had the house and you had a note and you had a mortgage, and I held that note. In other words, I was the owner of that note, and you don't pay me, right? I would need to sue you to get the title back in my name, because you probably have equity in the house, and I can't go steal your equity just because you paid 5 minutes late. The mortgage data is how I can sue you. That's where all the foreclosure data, that's the parameters of the foreclosure legal stuff is in the mortgage. What I have the right to do and not do in the mortgage. And it's standard. It's the same as almost every property. But the mortgage gives me the guidelines of what I can and can't do to get that note, to get that deed back that you defaulted on the note. You didn't default on the mortgage, you defaulted on the note. And the mortgage is the way I'm going to get the property back, because that's the bridge I got to walk over to get my title back. Because right now, I don't have title to the property. You have title to the property. You own the property. Right. So pre-foreclosure laws or foreclosure laws are very specific, because in the old days, if I lent you money and you had $50,000 worth of equity and the market appreciated, and I'm like, well, I want to get that property back from Peter because I can go sell that and make $75,000. And you miss by 1 minute on the mortgage, I could just say, okay, I'm taking the property back. You no longer have it. The buyer has no rights. What buyer would want to do that? So the mortgage is those rights. The mortgage and all that stuff allows you to, so you have to go through a court, which is a third-party system that would be fair and logical with pre-written laws and rules and all the domination that they have. And once they rule, then that's the law. That's the way it is. Right? So the banks can't keep their monopoly going by stealing houses. They have to go to court, they have to sue, and the language is within the mortgage. Okay.
Suing sounds like a bad thing, but in this case, it's the protection the homeowner would have, so that the bank just doesn't do whatever it wants. So it goes through the legal procedure. So in this case, it sounds like a protection.
Right.
No, I don't have a mortgage or a loan on my house, so I don't have anything to go look at. Are they two separate documents, or are they all combined as one? Do you know?
You do have that on your house. You just don't know it. You have a HELOC on your. You have a HELOC, and they filed on that. So there is a note and a mortgage.
Oh, okay. Okay, so if I looked at that, did you say it was? I'm sorry. Did you say it was one document or two? Would you say?
Well, here's the thing: they don't file the note.
Oh.
They file the mortgage.
Oh, okay.
Because the mortgage is the collateral and the legal stuff.
Okay.
Some companies, they used to file the notes, but obviously, you might find some deeds with notes on it, but it's not common. Usually the mortgage, and it will have a summary of the note in it.
Yeah.
Right. But they file the mortgage, not the note.
So that's why people think the mortgage is the loan, because that's all they see.
Right.
That makes sense. I'm glad I asked. Okay.
Right?
All
So how
right.
many people sling the word around mortgage and every day and they don't even know what it is?
Well, we all think it's a loan.
So my point to this entire 3 podcast, end off with a boom, boom, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there's a classic example
Yeah.
of how you can misunderstood words, and if you don't pay attention, if you don't study your craft, you're not going to know all these things. So you don't need to go study. Now I'm telling you, please listen to me, and most people won't, Peter. So I'm just gonna consider this as hot air being wasted. Okay. If you want to study your craft, like you said with your friend, go study the glossary.
Yeah.
Study the terms. Study the language, not the how-tos and what-tos. Study the language. Then when you go study the how-tos, it'll be a shorter runway. It'll be a lot quicker, right? So what we've done is we've created a short list of the main key words, and we've described them for you so you can go study. So if you still don't understand what we've talked about, then write the words down. Go back and listen to the podcast, and go write the words down, and go find a real estate dictionary that's a good real estate dictionary, and just look the words up yourself. Oh, by the way, the last thing I want to say. Actually, there's 2 more things I want to say.
I got one too. I got an encore for you.
So we're 5 minutes over, and I really wanted to do this an hour and 30 minutes. So what I wanted to say is, Sean Clouden says in his book, when you look a word up, use it in sentences at least 10 times. And that's you using that word. Make 10 sentences with that word. So if the word is, mortgage, use the word mortgage in 10 different sentences in your head until you feel like you completely understand it. Sometimes you got to do it 20 times. Make up 20. Write them down if you want.
Yeah.
So when you look up a word and you feel like you understand it, make 10 sentences to yourself so you can demonstrate to yourself that you know how to use that word. And when you do that, when you make 8 or 10 sentences, you'll form these mental image pictures of what a mortgage looks like, and you'll always remember it. So go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to give the class homework. One word we didn't define is real estate. So I want all the boys and girls to go look up real estate, find out what it means. And then next week, you can write in your comments, what you found out that it meant. That's your homework assignment for the week.
Good one. I didn't put that one in there. You're right. So it took us 3 podcasts to get it all out, Pete.
It was good, though.
I hope you have found these words, terms, and concepts and ideas beneficial. And more important, it gives you a quantum leap with your real estate investing activities so you too can hit your financial and freedom goals. This was my intention for the body of work that I've created here. So please, please, please go make me proud by flourishing and prospering by using it. And again, I want to shout out a very, very special thanks to Sean Clouden for his book, The Power of Words. Make sure you go give us a review, subscribe to our channel, go to the link in your description for the 25 free things that you can get. And also, if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, the top right-hand side of the page, there's a link that says testimonials. Please go leave me a testimonial, or Peter a testimonial, and let others know what you think about us. Even if you don't like us, tell us, because we've had that. We've had some pretty crude ones. Not many.
Yeah. No, we'll change our shirts. We'll do whatever. It's okay. Let us know.
So I'd like to make a comment about that. We've got about a 1.3 million, 1.2 million, 250,000, 1,260,000 downloads on this podcast.
Holy Jesus.
I think out of that time, in 5 years, we have 5 bad reviews.
That's not enough,
And one of them actually came back and said they apologize after they listened to some more podcasts.
Oh, really? Okay.
Juan says, here, I'll put it up here. Juan says, thanks. I learned so much in these 3 podcasts. Thank you guys. My copy of Cloudon's book will be coming today. Thanks for the
Oh,
recommending
nice.
it. Good for you, John. Juan, you just made a mega improvement to your life. Oh my God, it gives me goosebumps. Well done. Just read that book, and then when you're done, apply the tech that you learned in that book and read it again.
And then apply it to girls.
Yeah. Oh, we're leaving with that one. Don't listen to him, Juan. Don't listen to him, Juan.
Hey, we keep trying.
All right, guys. I have a wicked cool surprise for you next week. I was telling Peter earlier, the next couple
Don't do it, Bill.
we are
Don't
going to
do
make
it.
a complete left turn. Now you're talking to a guy that loves NASCAR and likes right turns. Oh no, wait a minute, they're left turns.
But Bill's going to take a right.
We are going to go places that you never thought we could go before.
Oh,
And I have not only are we going to go places, but I actually have a guest speaker who's going to be with us a couple weeks, and we are going to do things that you're going to be like, what? No way. The listenership is going to go up big time the next couple weeks with the topic we have. So make sure you listen next week. That's my Mr. Sandwich. Have a great day. Go make some offers, make some deals, send me a support ticket, and make sure you leave us a testimonial. Have a good day.